Alice, you can't go in there. No, Alice, you can't eat that. No, Alice, you can't do that. When you get really tired of hearing that, and then they start acting a little upset because they keep hearing the word no, and then we're going, man, this resident's really acting up today, and we want to, go medicate them, go sit them in a corner somewhere, when most of the time it's how we're interacting with them that's causing them to act the way they do. Arguing with them, we already talked about how arguing doesn't work, right? It's kind of like arguing with somebody that's drunk. It doesn't work. You have to figure out other ways to communicate with them than to argue with them, because they're not going to understand. It's not going to make sense to them anyway. Having direct eye contact is really important to do. And if you're talking to somebody and I'm sitting here doing this to them, do you think that's going to go well?
No.
No, ever. Don't ever point at them, but you shouldn't stand over somebody. And a lot of times they're sitting in a chair, right? And we're standing over them, telling them what to do. This is a power stance when you do that, right? Most people are not going to handle that very well at all. So I really encourage you, get down on your knees, get down on eye level with them before you start talking to them to have a conversation. It's going to go much better if you do that. Either sit next to them, or like I said, be in front of them, but be down on your knees. Don't be towering over people. Once again, that's easier said than done, but if you just start making those things a habit, it will go a whole lot better for the resident, which will make it a whole lot better for you. Okay, so redirect is one of the best tools you can have with somebody with dementia. Is you just redirect them. Don't get into an argument about it. Don't tell them, no, Alice, you can't go into their room. Like I said, once again, if you're just walking next to Alice and, hey, Alice, let's go check this out. You know, and you just move her in a different direction, but you don't sit there and say, no, don't go into the room. Makes it a lot easier to do. Knowing their triggers, you know, so if you guys know their life stories, it helps a lot if you know their life stories, even a little bit of their life story. But I have seen some huge reactions out of people by me figuring out what their life story is and going to that life story. And real quickly, I'm going to share one story with you that actually, when I started this journey, I started with a homestead in Lincoln 18 years ago. And one of the first things that happened to me, I was a client care coordinator, and I had one of my caregivers call me, and she was crying, and I could hear the person that she was taking care of screaming at her. I could hear him screaming at her. She's crying, and she says, you got to get over here quick. He's trying to hit me with his cane. What? He's trying to hit her with his cane. I said, all right. Luckily, I was just around the corner. I said, I'll be there in just a minute. And when I get there, and literally it was only about like 3 or 4 minutes, I was around the corner. I get there, I could still hear him yelling at her from inside the house. And I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, how am I gonna do this? And then I'm going, you know, people with dementia tend to put on their social graces, right? When they see people, that's why doctors can be fooled for a lot of times, is that, oh, sorry, I forgot you were doing that. They tend to put on their social graces in front of doctors. The doctors won't see that for a long time. The family's going, you gotta be kidding me. So I know they do that. So he did. I ring the doorbell. He gets to the front door, and he puts on his social graces when I get to the front door. And, Cliff, how you doing today? Oh, I'm doing all right. And I said, can I come visit? Sure. So I go in. He stops the yelling because he's got his social graces on. And I'm walking in his house trying to think of what can I talk to him about? What can we get on common ground here about? And it was very interesting. There happened to be on his coffee table, there was a magazine sitting there. And I was standing by this coffee table. And I looked down at it. It was a Newsweek magazine. And I looked down at that magazine, and I looked up at him, looked down at that again. I said, is that you on the cover of this Newsweek magazine? That's what he did. He had a suit on. Well, yes, it is. Well, what the heck? I said, I've never met anybody on the cover of a Newsweek magazine. Tell me about that. Guys, that man ended up telling me that he was the Secretary of Agriculture in Richard Nixon's White House administration. That's why he was on the cover of that magazine. And I'm going, you got some stories to share, don't you? And so he took me into a room that was like a museum. Just the pictures on the wall alone were like a history book. Walking in there, and he's telling me stories about this. And so I shared that with the caregivers. We ended up having to do 24-hour care with him and his wife for quite a long time. And I ended up finding out not only had he been in Richard Nixon's White House administration, he was a regent at UNL. He actually had he still does, has a hall named after him. He was a very important man who did a lot of very important work. And he wasn't used to people telling him what to do. And that's what the caregiver had to do, is because he could not be driving any longer. And he was used to driving him and his wife every day to the country club to eat lunch. And I told the family, guys, he cannot be doing it. It's very unsafe. Can you get the car away from him? Well, what they did is they took the keys away, but they didn't take the car away. So he went back out into the garage like he did every day and was going to drive that car. And my caregiver had to say to him, yeah, sorry, Cliff, you're not going to be able to do that. And that's why he was mad, and he's chasing her. It's like, who are you to tell me, that I cannot drive any longer? So those are the kinds of things that can really happen in people's lives. And just by learning, like I said, it was a huge learning moment for me to realize how very important it is to know what people have done in their life. And you don't have to be as big and powerful as he was, but everybody has a life, right? Everybody has a story. And when you know that, you're able to go with them to what this story is, it helps them feel like you care about them. And you're able to help them a lot easier than them just being agitated at you. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like I said, the more you can know, the more information you get when they move in, and you know it, it can really help. It can also help, like I said, knowing their life story, knowing their triggers. I tell caregivers all the time, do not ask the resident if they want to shower, because they're going to tell you what? No, right? So I tell them, give them a choice. Tell them, hey Susie, today's your shower day. And I know you love pink. Do you want to wear this pink sweater, or do you want to wear that pink sweater? So you're not asking them if they want to take a shower, but you're giving them some type of a choice, which is really important to do. Simple choices, like I said, knowing their life story, knowing their triggers, those types of things are very important, and they can come in very handy if you do it. Soft music really helps a whole lot. People, especially with dementia, a lot of times music can be very soothing for them, especially music they would have known when they were younger. So I would really encourage you to use music. Music is stored in a different area of your brain than your short-term memories are. Music is an emotional thing also. How many of you have maybe heard a song you hadn't heard since you were, a teenager, but that song comes on and you'll remember every word to that song, right? That's because it's stored in a different part of your brain, and it brings an emotional attachment to it. So like I said, music is huge, and we don't use it very often. We've
been watching a lot of cat and dog videos and squirrel videos.
Perfect.
They give you play-by-play. It's so entertaining.
It is, and it's so much better than the news,
yes.
Right? You don't want them sitting in front of a TV listening to the news. That is not ever a good thing, but especially now, it's not a good thing at all for anybody. So weighted blankets can help. Like I said, don't say too many words at a time. You want to be short on your words and give them time to process what you said to them. Taking care of people with dementia requires extra time. And you just have to know that going in, that you've got to give them time to process what you're saying to them, because it's all a big deal inside their head. And the more that you try to rush somebody with dementia, the more pushback that you're going to get from them. Okay, give them a reason to laugh. They still have a sense of humor, guys, and it sometimes can be quite entertaining to see what their sense of humor will be. But I would really encourage you, be playful. Give them a reason to laugh. We just talked about turning the TV off, putting music on. Intervene within 30 seconds. If you see, a lot of times, just like with kids, right? You can tell that they're gonna start working up to having a meltdown. You can do the same with people with dementia most of the time. It's like you can see the wheels turning. And that's really easy for people to go, yeah, I got things to do, I'm getting out of here, and take off. But it's still gonna happen. And then you have a whole situation to deal with when you come back later. You know, so if you just take a few minutes to just stop, interact with them, get them on to some other happy subject versus just walking off and leaving them, I promise you it will go a lot easier for you and for them if you do that. And don't embarrass or reprimand them. Nobody likes that either. And I see family members do that a lot. You know, and sometimes having this talk with family members can help. Apologize and take the blame. How many people like to do that? Apologize and take the blame for something you didn't do. Most people don't like doing it, but I promise you, if you learn how to do it, it really helps diffuse a situation. It's very hard to sit there and argue with somebody when they're apologizing to you. You're right, I'm really sorry. I won't do that again. It's very hard to keep arguing with somebody, right? And people with dementia tend to usually take that quite well. So do your spouses, if you learn how to do that. You know, so do other people. We just don't tend to like to be apologetic when we don't feel like we've done anything wrong. But it really does help if you learn how to do that. Put the relationship first before the task. If you just take a few minutes to bond with that resident when you're walking in there, just sit and talk to them for a few minutes, find out how they're doing before you tell them to go get naked and get into the shower. It makes that whole process a whole lot easier if you'll do that. Simple questions, you see you don't want to make it complicated. Give them clues. That's another thing. They tend to not understand the words you're saying to them. So if you tell them, hey, Alice, it's time to, you know, go sit in the chair, and she's looking at you, her brain's going, I don't know what she's talking about. What does sit in the chair mean? And if you go, hey, Alice, can you sit right here for me? Then her brain's going to go, okay, I know what she means. So like I said, just patting something, patting the chair will help them know. Okay, we're about done here. Don't take things personally. How many of you have a hard time with that? Most people do. They take things personally. People with dementia do not mean it in a personal way. They don't really have the capacity to mean it in a personal way. It's what's personal to them is how they're responding. So if you just learn how to have a little bit of a thicker skin, it really does help. They're doing the best they can with the tools they have. Honestly, that's what they're doing, the best they can. Back off and give them some space. Give yourself some space. If it's just not going well, go take a 10-minute break. If you have a team member that you can get, hey, can you go see Betty? She's just not reacting to me very well. That's a really good thing to do. If you don't, then just go take 10 minutes. Give them 10 minutes, give yourself 10 minutes. Then you go back in there. Betty, it's so good to see you today. And you act like you haven't even seen Betty 15 minutes ago and she wasn't just yelling at you. Have a big old smile on your face and act completely different. Most of the time that's going to work very well if you will do that. And that's what this is saying. Go back 15 minutes later, start all over again. Does that make sense? I think we're done. So, when you have seen one person with dementia, you have seen one person with dementia. Guys, our personalities play a big part in this. And if I can tell you anything, the best way to interact with anyone, much less with someone with dementia, is let them know that you really care about them. That's what it really boils down to, is that you love these people, that you really care about them. If you show them that, most of the time they're not going to give you all of the expressive communication that they can give you if they feel that you really care about them. And it's really important to do. This job is not for everybody. You know, it's just not. It takes a special kind of person to work in these types of communities, and it really takes a special person when it comes to having dementia, because it can be very wearing on people. So like I said, just really convey to them you love them and you care about them, and it's a lot easier to get the work done. All right,
Thank
any
you.
questions? No?